You may have not heard the news. You likely did, but the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that Trump gets to stay on the ballot. And the implications are not just obviously in Colorado, but the entire nation.
Yeah, they did it in 13 different states. And I'm very close to it because a very good friend of mine was part of the litigation firm that was assigned to Colorado, Illinois, and I believe Maine to defend the case, Donald Trump. They lost at the state level, but won at the Supreme Court.
Well, I want to take a crack at the response that came from the Supreme Court, the actual official response. But it said, this is just a portion of it. All 9 members of the court agree with that result. Our colleagues writing separately further agree. So I just want to point out just how they felt. So it wasn't that a 9-0 decision is not to be taken lightly or disregarded, right? In today's age, when these people make up different ideologies. So far as we can tell, they object. Oh, actually, I'm going to skip some of that. But the last piece is really key. In our view, each of these reasons is necessary to provide a complete explanation for the judgment the court unanimously reaches. So the Supreme Court unanimously decided that this was not the right thing to do, and that states have no right to be able to remove a federal candidate from the ballot because they don't like him, ultimately.
Yeah, and they tried to say that it was because he was part of an insurrection. He hasn't even been convicted of that.
Correct.
And so as entrepreneurs, if you're listening to this, one, you should be paying attention because this country was founded by non-career politicians. They were founded by entrepreneurs. And so anybody who's a career politician that is bad-mouthing Donald Trump, who's an entrepreneur, who's ultimately trying to step up and do something for this country by putting his own neck and his own dollars on the line when he doesn't really have to, should be, I guess, proud and in alignment with that. But two, if they can just come in and just tactically remove somebody from the ballot because they don't like them, what can they do to you?
Right. The implications too to what you just said is like, I really think I think we're heading into an age where I personally think that we're going to see more entrepreneurs step back into public office.
Yep.
Because being a politician is not a career path. No. It never was intended to be that.
Correct.
And so because it's a conflict of interest, you cannot serve to the degree that you might be called to serve and make decisions within your conscience because your paycheck depends on it. And who suffers in that? Your constituents, the citizens of this republic, right? And so I think we're going to see an age where we see entrepreneurs come back full circle, local, state government.
Yeah, and that's how it should be.
100%.
Entrepreneurs were funding schools and libraries and pouring into their communities and their church, and they were running for mayor. And
well, there's some interesting responses that came forth from the Trump ruling that I just want to share with you guys real quick, and with you, Samson. So Vivek had this response. He said, today's 9-0 Supreme Court decision needn't be something to celebrate. It's something we ought to once again take for granted. We the people decide who governs. The fact that it took the highest court in the land to say this shows how far we've fallen, but it's a good start in the right direction. Notable NBC correspondent Keith Olbermann had this to say on the opposite side of that spectrum. He said the Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor. So notice how he tries to guilt them because they're Democratic.
Yeah,
have proved themselves inept at reading comprehension. They're just Supreme Court justices from the highest institutions. And collectively, the court has shown itself to be corrupt and illegitimate. It must be dissolved. So were they corrupt and illegitimate when they got in and you were celebrating? Right? So it's just this boo-hooing. And it's just further indication that we have to pay attention because it's a crap show out there and it's a clown show.
It's a last ditch effort because the betting line that Trump's going to win is really strongly in favor of Trump. And so they're doing everything they're trying to do. I believe is that they're trying to confuse you. Even my wife was like, can we actually vote for Trump? Is he on the ballot? Is he off the ballot?
Right.
And this is why this was so important because today's the last day to turn in your ballots, right? And so this is a big and important topic that needs to be discussed.
Dude, here's the thing too, is this is what makes the Constitution so important.
Right.
And what we're going to see coming out of this decision is a lot of people on the left, uneducated Democrats talking about they're violating the Constitution. Not violating. The Constitution is not relevant. It didn't solve our problems. And we're going to see this anti-Constitution rhetoric comes that essentially calls for the abolishing of it, because the Constitution is what actually stops corruption and tyranny when we adhere to it.
Correct.
And so it's going to be the thing that gets attacked. And so what combats that? Destroying your own personal ignorance about the documents.
Right.
Or watching some of our videos we've made, things like that. So, yeah, it's a wonderful thing to see. It's not necessarily like Vivek said we're celebrating, but it is nice to know that, okay, the infrastructure is still intact. It's not completely gone. And so it's on us to keep it, to maintain it, to fortify it.
Yeah, and I don't know, you have to have like your head in the sand to literally sit here and say that the guy that's currently in the House is very competent.
Facts.
Mentally, physically. He is, man, like somebody's grandpa who snuck out of the senior home, you know?
It is funny, dude. I don't want to hijack this conversation, but like there's a portion of me that's actually steaming about some of this, because right now, one of the things we see within the community of Black Americans, there's this weird tone of, we're not going to be tricked by Trump. We're not going to be tricked. We know the game. Trump's this. He's that. He's racist. He's all this. Bruh, look at our cities. Look at our inner cities. Look at our schools. Look at our young Black people. What are the conditions they're living in? Who does that point back to? The current president-in-chief.
Yeah.
And in all this
It's
talk,
the worst it's ever been.
and then all this talk, one of the things that conveniently happened is when people comment on this stuff about what's happening with the Black community and why Trump is bad, they always actually skip over Biden and go to Obama. Obama was this and this and this. Trump was this. What about the guy now? You know, so it's like, it's for a different conversation. I don't want to derail it, but man, I'm personally internally fired up because I'm not a Trump boy at all. But I ain't rocking with this Biden dude.
Yeah, but you are in America first.
Exactly.
Dude. And if you guys haven't read the book by Peter Zion, Accidental Superpower, highly encourage it. If you haven't read The Fourth Turning, it's another great book. It tells you what's happening generationally in our society, where we're at, and what's happening, which is the United States is removing itself from the global economy. We're going back to America first type of time period, more similar to what it was pre-World War II. And as a result of that, you need a president that subscribes to that. So him being an entrepreneur, him being, self-made billionaire, him not being a career politician, right? Basically everything that is the antithesis of what we've seen over the last, call it 60 years, is what people are actually craving and wanting.
100%.
And so, because we've tried all the other stuff, right? And so you kind of try everything else and you go, okay, well, I guess that ain't it.
Well, and the results speak for themselves. His presidency was not lackluster by any means.
Right.
He did what he could do with the hands he was dealt, and actually helped the very people that are now saying he has no interest in helping them.
Correct.
So,
and that's also just FUD too, because I've heard other people from the Black community saying the exact opposite.
Right.
If Trump gets us, we understand it. They're doing the same thing that they tried to do to us. And so it's a mixed bag. So don't believe everything you see on TV.